Hey Faction, Pete Dupuis back with another edition of FitBiz Thursday. This week I'm going to go with a little bit of a new and unique topic, and I want to talk to you about seminars, specifically from the perspective of gym or business owners who are hoping to host seminars, because I think that this is a trend that's growing in popularity, and in some ways that's great, and in other ways I would say not so much. And so this time around I want to talk to you about why I like them, why I think they are troublesome, and then I want to give you 3 tips for how I think you can maximize the productivity of seminars should you decide you want to host one at your space. So first things first, let's talk about why they're great. Obviously they're awesome for networking. I think it's great for people to get out and experience new gyms, new parts of the country, new areas that they haven't visited. Seminars are a good opportunity to do that. And then obviously learning is good in a networking environment. I think it's awesome if you can get out and capture some new ideas and be exposed to some new concepts and have an opportunity to do so outside of a textbook or outside of your gym or your office, whatever your learning environment is. Typically new learning environment's great. Why I think they're a problem, especially as of late. For starters, there's just too many to choose from. The market's pretty watered down as far as seminar options go, and it's starting to cause event organizers to get frustrated and feel a little discouraged by the process because it's incredibly difficult to fill a room these days, and it's really just a matter of too much competition and too many options. So beyond that, there's also a pretty serious lack of direction I find in seminars. So it's pretty common to have a big fitness business event and have 10 to 15, 16, 17 presenters come in over a 1 to 3 day span and pretty much hit every area you could possibly imagine. And the lack of organized thought can be a little bit confusing for the attendees. And in conjunction with that, I think that a lot of the information that's provided isn't always actionable because it kind of feels like you're drinking from a fire hose as you try and consume all kinds of information over a multi-day span. And then lastly, I think there's a kind of a problem when you put so many presenters into the mix that you have multiple tracks, as they call them, and you're forced to pick from competing presentations at the same time. Because in my experience, Murphy's Law says that the presentations that you do want to see typically overlap, and then the ones that you're not interested in are not at a time that conveniently can be ignored. So that's kind of my reasons for liking and disliking seminars these days, but I do think that there's value in them, and I think that these events can be hugely profitable and valuable to gym owners and business owners if structured appropriately. I just think that we need to reevaluate our approach and oftentimes think a little smaller. So 3 specific tips here I'll give you if you are thinking of hosting an event. First tip, I want you to under-promise and over-deliver. So instead of setting an expectation early, if you're inviting presenters or inviting guests, saying this is going to be the biggest event our industry's ever seen, epic information, phenomenal presenters, holy shit, it's going to be amazing. Think small. Get around the idea of selling a dream of a tight-knit community communicating in a learning environment. Think more mastermind setup than masterful orchestration of an event venue and location. And that's my cat Lucy entering the picture here. Next, rule number 2. I want you to get really specific. So let me give you a great example. There was an event I presented at last fall, the Vigor event. Luca put together a phenomenal collection of presenters. I had no business standing on stage alongside the other presenters they had there. And all of them could command a seminar, one-day event where they could put 40, 50, 60, 100 people in the room, or at least many of them could if they were singularly presenting. But as a group, they had a hard time putting 100 people in the room. And it's because there were just too many concepts being kicked around. And the power of draw for each of them individually was kind of diminished when they were collectively together because they all have very different target audiences. So I encourage you to get specific. A great example would be Dean and Tony. So Dean Somerset and Tony Gentilcore offering their complete hip and shoulder workshops. These are events that couldn't be more clear about what you can expect. You're going to show up, you're going to learn about hips, and you're going to learn about shoulders. No one ever walked away from one of those presentations or a weekend with those two and said, I felt like they misled us as to what was covered. It was specific, it was actionable, and there was no confusion as far as what you were going to take away from it. Whereas you go to a bigger event, oftentimes people will recruit the biggest name presenters they can get, and then they don't ask them to specifically outline what they're going to be covering. So you end up presenting anything they want, and you're selling an event that is more geared toward the name than it is about the content, and that's where you lose people's attention. So get really, really specific about what you're covering. If you want to do a business event, have a business event. Mark Fisher and I are going to be doing an event in Florida, and all we're going to talk about is systemization and culture building. We're not going to talk at all about branding. We're not going to talk at all about Facebook advertising. We're not going to talk at all about fitness instruction. We are going to talk about building culture and systemizing your business. We're going to stay in that lane for 2 days, and we're going to sell the 30 seats that are available for that exact reason, because we kept it very precise as far as content goes. So there's number 2, be specific. Third rule is I want you to think about promotion as something more than putting up the exact same Facebook ad or visual over and over again for days, weeks, and months on end leading up to it. This is one of the more frustrating pieces of event advertising that I see. It's that people think that if some is good with one promotion, more is better. And I'll tell you how we did things this fall. We had a very successful fall seminar at Cressy Sports Performance. Up until that point of time, I believe this was our 6th annual, we had averaged around 125 to 135 attendees. Our max we had ever done is right about 160 on the dot. And we had seen a recent dip because, I believe in theory, partially because of this decline, or I should say the sheer volume of events that are available. People are kind of getting seminar fatigue as far as options to consider. And so in the fall of 2016, we had a recent low of around 120 attendees. Certainly plenty to fill a room and make it worth doing, but not a PR of any sort. And this year we said to ourselves, or I should say in 2017, we said to ourselves, let's get really deliberate about how we position this event in social media and take a structured approach to how we advertise it. And in doing so, we set a massive record for ourselves. We had 189 paying guests, which is far and away a big record for us, and about a third more attendees from the year before, without really shifting anything strategically as far as how we deliver the information. It was just about how we positioned the event itself. So how did we get deliberate? Well, we created a content calendar for how we were going to advertise the events. And the first thing I need to do before I could execute on it is mandate that all of my employees who are presenting lock down exactly what their content covered is going to be in advance. So we firmed up presentation topics months before we even announced the event. That way, when we came to promote the event initially, we could say this is exactly what's being covered in this exact order by these exact employees. So people didn't feel like there was a certain amount of ambiguity and they were just signing up to go see Eric talk about God knows what. They got to take a look at the curriculum and decide if that was a fit for them. Once I had that information in hand, I looked at the calendar and I said, how am I going to make sure that each of these presentations gets presented individually, or I should say promoted individually, 4 times over the 4 months leading up to the event. So I basically, once a month, would make sure that I was putting together an Instagram, a Twitter post, and a Facebook announcement about each presentation. So I asked each employee to take their big rocks from their presentation, their 3, 4, 5 primary takeaways, and give me a summary of each in advance. And then we would start creating visuals to go alongside each of these summaries. And we would publish on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for the months leading up to the event, and making sure that people weren't getting smashed in the face with the same logos, the same descriptions, the same links over and over again. They're actually getting value, content, brief teasers, and little bits of presentation material to get them excited about presentations and feel like this is going to be more than somebody just standing in front of a PowerPoint and talking at you for an hour. They want to know that there's going to be something unique in each of these presentations, and that's how we did it. So it meant that I put up, 7 or 8 presentations, 4 times, 35 to 40 individual social media posts that were all entirely unique. We didn't give the same one twice at any point. And I think the key there was that people understood that this was a massive volume of content that was going to be delivered and it wasn't going to overlap. And we strategically prepared each presentation to take place in a certain order to complement the material that came before it. So that's how we did it. That's how we created an event that put close to 200 people in the room. It's by far our most profitable event of the year. And it's kind of done on autopilot at this point as far as the logistics of delivering the experience, but there's nothing autopilot about how we promote the experience. So our 3 rules for running a good event. 1, if I'm going to be doing one in a different facility, I'm going to under-promise and over-deliver. So I'm not going to invite people to present or invite guests and tell them it's going to be the biggest thing they've ever seen. I'm going to stay in one specific lane, keep it manageable. 2, I'm going to get specific. So I'm going to pick a very, very specific topic or maybe handful of complementary topics, and I'm going to stay on point like Tony and Dean's hip and shoulder blueprint. And then number 3, I'm going to get really, really deliberate about how I promote the event, and I'm going to make sure that I don't get redundant in the presentation strategy of all the material that I give. I hope you guys are still planning on hosting seminars at your facilities. I know there's a ton of fitness business owners in the faction and gym owners who realize that there is value in delivering seminars and they can be profitable and they can be great learning environments. But if you don't want to get discouraged by the process and really quit on it quickly, I think you got to follow these rules. Keep it small and manageable. That's it for this week. Going to be back next Thursday with another Q&A. Look forward to chatting with you all. We'll talk soon.